Ryuichi Sakamoto, a godfather of electronic pop, has died. Ryuichi Sakamoto, a trailblazing composer and producer who was one of the first musicians to incorporate electronic production into popular songcraft, has died at the age of 71. Sakamoto died on March 28 after a multi-year battle with cancer, according to a statement published on his website Sunday. We would like to share one of Sakamoto's favorite quotes. The statement read, "Ars longa vita brevis." Art is long, life is short. The Japanese composer had an exceptionally wide-ranging career. He was by turns a synth-pop idol, the composer of both sweeping film scores and quiet, gentle sound environments, and a collaborator of artists such as David Bowie, Iggy Pop, and Bernardo Bertolucci. As a member of Japan's hugely influential band, Yellow Magic Orchestra, and as a solo artist, he was a grandfather of electronic pop music, making songs that influenced early hip-hop and techno. Born on January 17, 1952, Sakamoto enjoyed a culturally rich childhood. His father was the editor for such post-war Japanese novelists such as Kenzaburo Oi and Yukio Mishima. He began taking piano lessons when he was 6 years old and later started writing his own music. As a teenager, he became enamored of the work of Claude Debussy, a composer who himself had been inspired by Asian musical aesthetics, including that of Japan. As Sakamoto told the Weekend Edition in 1988, "I think my music is based on a very Western system, because there is a beat, there's a melody, there's harmony. So this is Western music. But you know, some feeling, some atmosphere or sense of sound is a little bit Asian, maybe 25–30%. By the time Sakamoto reached university to study composition, his musical life was already following multiple paths simultaneously. At school, he was absorbing heady works by the giants of post-war European modernism, like Stockhausen, Ligeti, Xenakis, and Boulez. But he was also playing Okinawan folk music and free jazz in his spare time, as well as combing record stores for craft work. In 1978, he joined multi-instrumentalist Haruhomi Hosono and drummer Yukihiro Takahashi to form the band Yellow Magic Orchestra. Sakamoto played keyboards, and all three members sang. YMO, Yellow Magic Orchestra, proved to be an enormous cultural force not only in just Japan, but internationally. With its playful, heavily layered and sophisticated use of electronics, the band and its members' solo projects, including Sakamoto's track Riot in Lagos, became a guiding light for the burgeoning hip-hop and techno communities. YMO did a turn on Soul Train, performing their song Computer Games. Africa Bambaataa sampled their Firecracker for his Death Mix Part 2. In 1993, a group of leading ambient, house, and techno musicians paid tribute to YMO's influence with an album called High Tech, No Crime, featuring YMO remixes from producers including The Orb, 808 State, and Orbital. In 1983, he acted alongside David Bowie in Merry Christmas, Mr. Lawrence, directed by Nagisa Oshima. Sakamoto also wrote the movie score, his first. At his initial meeting with Oshima, Sakamoto told The Guardian in 2000 he asked to write the movie's music, marking the start of a long and notable career as a film composer. Sakamoto went on to score such films as Bernardo Bertolucci's The Last Emperor, for which he won an Oscar, a Golden Globe, and a Grammy, along with co-composers David Byrne and Chinese composer Kong Su, as well as Bertolucci's The Sheltering Sky in 1990, for which he also won a Golden Globe. He also wrote the scores for Pedro Almodovar's High Heels in 1991, Alejandro González Iñárritu's Babel in 2006, and The Revenant in 2015, among others. As Sakamoto's career matured, his interest in aesthetic and intellectual exploration grew. Throughout the 1980s, 1990s, and 2000s, he collaborated with a wide array of international musicians, including Thomas Dolby, Youssou N'Dour, Iggy Pop, Jacques Morelenbaum, Karsten Nicolai aka Alvin Noto, and an especially frequent partner, singer-songwriter and experimental composer David Sylvian. Sakamoto also partnered with visual artists, including Nam June-paik and Shiro Takatani, collaborating with the latter for the 1999 multimedia opera Life. In 2017, 3 years into a publicly acknowledged fight with throat cancer, Sakamoto released a lush ambient album called Async. He continued to make music until the very end. In his later years, Sakamoto became an important voice in protesting nuclear power, particularly in the wake of the 2011 Daiichi nuclear disaster in Fukushima Prefecture. His public activism is a fundamental part of the 2017 documentary film Ryuichi Sakamoto, Coda, as is his battle against cancer. "I honestly don't know how many years I have left," he said in one Coda scene. "It could be 20 years, 10 years, or a relapse reduces it to just one. I'm not taking anything for granted, but I know that I want to make more music. music that I won't be ashamed to leave behind, meaningful work. Sakamoto publicly announced that he had been diagnosed with rectal cancer in January 2021. In a message posted on his website, he wrote, "From now on, I will be living alongside cancer, but I am hoping to make music for a little while longer." Throughout the later part of the 2000s, Sakamoto collaborated on several projects with visual artist Shiro Takatani, including the installations Life, Fluid, Invisible, Inaudible, commissioned by YWCM Yamaguchi, Collapsed in Silent Spins at the Museum of Contemporary Art Tokyo in 2012 and 2013, Shara Benil, UAE, Life Well in 2013, and a special version for Park Hyatt Tokyo's 20th anniversary in 2014. And he did music for the joint performance Life Well featuring the actor No Kyogen Mansai Nomura and for Shiro Takatani's performance Still in 2015. In 2013, Nakamoto was a jury member at the 70th Venice International Film Festival. The jury viewed 20 films and was chaired by filmmaker Bernardo Bertolucci. In 2014, Sakamoto became the first guest artistic director of the Sapporo International Art Festival 2014. On July 10, Sakamoto released a statement indicating that he had been diagnosed with oropharyngeal cancer in late June of the same year. He announced a break from his work while he sought treatment and recovery. On August 3, 2015, Sakamoto posted on his website that he was in great shape and "I am thinking about returning to work," and announced that he'd be providing music for Yoji Yamada's Haha to Kuraseba, Living with My Mother. In 2015, Sakamoto also composed the score for Alejandro González Iñárritu's film The Revenant, for which he received a Golden Globe nomination. In January 2017, it was announced that Sakamoto would release a solo album in April 2017 through Milan Records. The new album, titled Async, was released on March 29, 2017 to critical acclaim. In February of 2018, he was selected to be on the jury for the main competition section of the 68th Berlin International Film Festival. On June 14, 2018, a documentary about the life and work of Sakamoto entitled Coda was released. The film follows Sakamoto as he recovers from cancer and resumes creating music, protests nuclear power plants following the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear disaster, and creates field recordings in a variety of locales. Directed by Stephen Nomura Shivel, the documentary was met with critical praise. Sakamoto's production credits represent a prolific career in this role. In 1983, he produced Mari Ijima's debut album Rosé, the same year that the Yellow Magic Orchestra was disbanded. Sakamoto subsequently worked with artists such as Thomas Dolby, Aztec Camera on the Dreamland album, and Imai Miki, co-producing her 1994 album A Place in the Sun. In 1996, Sakamoto produced Mind Circus, the first single from the actress Miki Nakatani, leading to a collaboration period spanning 9 singles and 7 albums through 2001. Roddy Frame, who worked with Sakamoto as a member of Aztec Camera, explained in a 1993 interview preceding the release of Dreamland that he had had to wait a lengthy period of time before he was able to work with Sakamoto, who wrote 2 soundtracks, a solo album, and the music for the opening ceremony at the Barcelona Olympics prior to working with Frame over 4 weeks in a New York studio. Frame said that he was impressed by the work of YMO and the Merry Christmas Mr. Lawrence soundtrack, explaining, "That's where you realize that the atmosphere around his compositions is actually in the writing. It's got nothing to do with synthesizers." Frame's decision to ask Sakamoto was finalized after he saw his performance at the Japan Festival that was held in London, United Kingdom. Of his experience recording with Sakamoto, Frame said, "He's got this reputation as a boffin, a professor of music who sits in front of a computer screen. But he's more intuitive than that, and he's always trying to corrupt what he knows. Halfway through the day in the studio, he will stop and play some hip-hop or some house for 10 minutes, and then go back to what he was doing. He's always trying to trip himself up like that, and to discover new things. Just before we worked together, he'd been out in Borneo, I think, with a DAT machine looking for new sounds." In 1994, Japan Football Association asked Ryuichi Sakamoto to compose the instrumental song Japanese Soccer Anthem. The composition was played at the beginning of the Japan Football Association-sponsored events, such as Emperor's Cup matches. Sakamoto began working in films as a composer and actor in Nagase Oshima's Merry Christmas Mr. Lawrence, for which he composed the score, title theme, and the duet Forbidden Colors with David Sylvian. Sakamoto later composed Bernardo Bertolucci's The Last Emperor, which earned him the Academy Award with fellow composers David Byrne and Kong Soo. In that same year, he composed the score to the cult classic anime film Royal Space Force The Wings of Honimus. Sakamoto also went on to compose the score for the opening ceremony of the 1992 Summer Olympics in Barcelona, Spain, telecast live to an audience of over 1 billion viewers. Other films scored by Sakamoto include Pedro Almodovar's Tajones Lejanos in 1991, Bertolucci's The Little Buddha in 1993, Oliver Stone's Wild Palms in 1993, John Mabry's Love is the Devil, Study for a Portrait of Francis Bacon in 1998, Brian De Palma's Snake Eyes in 1998 and Femme Fatale in 2002, Oshima's Gohato in 1999, and Junichi Kawa's director of the Mitsui Rehouse commercial from 1997 to 1999, starring Chizuru Kawaki and Mao Inoue, Tony Takatani in 2005. Several tracks from Sakamoto's earlier solo albums have also appeared in film soundtracks. In particular, variations of Chinsagu no Hana from Beauty and Bibo no Aozora from 1996 provide the poignant closing pieces for Sue Brooks' Japanese Story and Alejandro Gonzalez Inarritu's Babel, respectively. In 2015, Sakamoto teamed up with Inarritu to score his film The Revenant, starring Leonardo DiCaprio and Tom Hardy. Sakamoto has also acted in several films. Perhaps his most notable performance was the conflicted Captain Yonoi in Merry Christmas, Mr. Lawrence, alongside Takeshi Kitano and British rock singer David Bowie. He also played roles in The Last Emperor as Masahiko Amakasu and Madonna's Rain music video. Sakamoto's first of 3 marriages occurred in 1972 but ended in divorce 2 years later. Sakamoto had a daughter from this relationship. Sakamoto then married popular Japanese pianist and singer Akiko Yano in 1982, following several musical collaborations with her, including touring work with the Yellow Magic Orchestra. Sakamoto's second marriage ended in August 2006, 14 years after a mutual decision to live separately. Yano and Sakamoto raised one daughter, J-pop singer Miyu Sakamoto. He has lived with his manager and wife Norika Sora since around 1990 and has 2 children with her. Ryuichi Sakamoto, Oscar-winning Japanese composer's last words before he died. When the first living thing existed, I was there waiting. When the last living thing dies, my job will be finished. I'll put the chairs on the tables, turn out the lights, and lock the universe behind me when I leave.